Hey guys, PJ here, and today at Exotic Car Hacks, we're going to be taking a drive together in the AMG GT Black Series. Now, partially you might be wondering, well, why don't you drive this car more often? Why don't we see it more often on the channel? And it's really a tough kind of car to describe because, you know, I think it's a beautiful and incredible car altogether. I mean, look, you have beautiful carbon fiber, you have beautiful gloss back stuff. I mean, you have a lot of features, you have a lot of creature comforts, and you have a lot of power, speed, and everything in between. So what is there not to love about this car? And the relationship I have with this car is really a love and a hate relationship that has nothing to do with the car itself, but rather everything to do with my own personality and my own car collection. It doesn't really have a place in my car collection, and I struggle to find a reason to drive it when I have so many other cars that I think do what I personally like in a car better than this car. But nonetheless, this has a Nürburgring record, and it's pretty impressive of a car. It corners like nothing I've ever seen, and it's really good when you're just going out to dinner because it doesn't overwhelm you. And I guess maybe part of me is that because I only drive for leisure, I don't really drive to go anywhere because I have to. I find it that comfort isn't always what I seek in a car. I seek experience, excitement. And the things that I miss in this car isn't really the word experience, but rather excitement. Because you see, today we're going to go for a drive together so you can kind of understand what I mean. But on the surface, I want you to understand where I come from. So design is beautiful. Functionality, amazing. Same thing that you get in S-Class, all the little features, gadgets and stuff, fine. You don't get massaging seats, but you get everything else a high-tech car is expected to do. And you don't usually get that in a high-performance car. So brilliantly done, very well integrated and very clean. But then you get into this other part of it. And the part that is almost too tame. I know, it sounds weird. And I thought it was really an exhaust issue at first because I was like, well, it's got to be the exhaust because you can't hear the exhaust much. It's definitely not the design because one of the best looking cars on the market, in my opinion, is one of the best and most exciting looking designs we've had in a long time. But then comes the whole part about the drive. It just feels different. So today we're going to drive together and really see, and let me have you understand why I'm a huge fan of this car, and at the same time, I just can't get myself to ever pick it as the car I drive for today. So before we get started, you should know that right here on this console, you'll find a series of basic commands such as comfort, which can also be found here on the steering wheel. So you have your little comfort. Now we're in sport. You hear the exhaust getting louder, Sport Plus, and then race mode. So today we're going to drive it in Sport Plus, which sounds the same as race mode, but is for the street, right? We're going to go here and press to go manual. So now we can use our paddles because it's a lot more fun. And for the suspension, we're going to leave it on Sport Plus as well, which makes it quite stiff, but it's okay. You also have this traction control button, which you can adjust the different the amount of traction control you get. Once you turn the traction control off, you can manually start tweaking it. And you have an exhaust button in case you want to close the flaps. But trust me, it's so quiet that you should never want to close the flaps. It just doesn't make any sense. So we're going to go driving, and this is the other part that annoys me is right away, you can't just press up to go into the actual gear like every other exotic. You have to go through this little lever just like a Mercedes. I think it's kind of stupid. Like, you know, when you make a race car, you should kind of follow the rules of having a race car, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But anyways, so we're gonna go for a little drive so I can kind of explain to you as I drive why, again, I can't get myself to drive this car too much. So the first thing you'll notice when you drive is the stiffness of the tires. You'll notice that it's equipped with a set of like Michelin's, whatever, the Sport Cup 2 race tires. And it's a beautiful, beautiful looking tire, and it's a marvelous tire, but on the street it can be quite harsh. I mean, you get an expected ride like this with the Senna or something else, and you expect it. And, you know, a lot of people won't realize, but you actually hear a lot of rocks on this car too. Like with the Senna when we drive, we get a lot of the rocks, you know, like basically hitting the fenders and stuff, and you hear it. In this car, you're getting a lot of the same thing. And you hear it, like, even when we're driving here, again, you hear the noise from the engine. This isn't a question of is it quiet or not. It's just not that much of an exciting noise. And if you actually watch other YouTube videos, you can kind of understand why. They talk about how the engine's built a certain way that's very different from the AMG GT Pro and the AMG GT, which creates a very unique sound, which is significantly different than anything you could expect from those cars once you put exhaust, because they sound amazing. So, you know, they sound amazing. This one doesn't sound as good, but still nonetheless sounds good, just doesn't sound that great. You can hear the kind of mumbling of the motor. Now I want to let you hear something as we enter the highway. I want you to kind of understand the dynamic of how that changes. Listen to this. We're at 6,000 RPMs. I'm not flying, but I'm going fast. Then the other thing you hear as you start going fast, you start to hear this whistle and you wonder what the hell's going on. And then you realize that the whistle comes from the spoiler, because the spoiler lifts up because it thinks you're on a track when you're in Sport Plus. And when you're going a straightaway, it provides extra problems. So you hear it be anti-aerodynamic, which is one button away from getting, kind of stopped. Again, you hear this. This is the drag, like the way the wind hits the car. You get this little whistle no matter what you do. So it's more intensive with the spoiler than not. But again, you're here, you hear it. Exciting, right? Not really. Nothing really happens. The car doesn't wow you by any means. It doesn't get you so excited that like you can't wait to drive it. But it's incredibly comfortable. And it's incredibly planted, so it takes you to a place where you basically go, yeah, I don't mind driving this every day, I'd be pretty comfortable. And it's a really good looking car, and it's got power. So it does almost everything really well. It doesn't really do one thing so spectacularly well that it makes the excitement on day-to-day driving come out of you. It just doesn't. Like with the Lamborghinis, at least, you get design and noise, so you get experience. Like the visceral experience is unmatched. Unmatched, like to a degree that like you can't get out of any other car. With McLaren, you get the wow factor of the design, and again, you get more of a track weapon, and you kind of know what you're getting into, right? You get butterfly doors, you get something that's not really classy. This car reminds me a lot of a Porsche, and this is part of the reason why I originally bought it. But this is the same argument I had about my GT3 RS. So I had a PTS GT3 RS that was just probably the hottest GT3 PTS that existed anywhere. And the thing with that car was completely modified. It had Weissach mag wheels on it. I mean, it was just brutally beautiful. And the problem with that car was that it wasn't that it was a bad car. It was a fantastic car. Every time I drove it, I would stare at it and be like, so beautiful. But it wasn't exciting. And what would happen is it would be the last car I would want to drive in my garage. So it wasn't that exciting, and it was creating a weird dynamic for me where I wasn't really excited about taking it out. And I find myself to be in the same mode with this car. The lack of excitement, the lack of desire to drive it. And partially because I think, it isn't that exciting. And partially, I think it's better looking than a Porsche. So, to me, it kind of does the same thing. It performs really well. It's beautiful, but it just doesn't excite me. And I think the same can be said about all the GT Porsche series, the GT2 RS, the GT3 RS. They're like brutally fast, but the only time you can really have a lot of fun is if you go really fast. Like, you don't really get excited about driving the car other than driving it either on a track or driving it really fast on a spirited run where you can appreciate what it does, how it corners, and how it handles. But with this car, you can't, unless, again, the same thing, you go really fast. So it's back in this pool where if I had one exotic car, would I ever buy this? And the answer is no, because I don't have, one exotic car and I have a collection of cars. I can buy it, but then will I ever drive it? And part of the thing with collecting cars is you don't actually have to drive everything you own, so it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something you have to be mindful of. And listen to this again. Very fast, very engaged, very fast with the handling and the speed and everything, and it's really fantastic. But the other thing you get also in the street, just like with the Porsche, people don't really recognize this car, don't really know what it is. A lot of people may think of it as a Mercedes AMG GT, and they really like that design, so you'll get thumbs up for that, and you'll get recognized for having a cool car. But you're really not getting the respect of a $500,000 car on the road. And I think that's something else that, depending on how many other cars you have, is pretty enjoyable about some of these other supercars, like the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis. they're just better cars because you're getting the experience, right? And experience does matter in the earlier days of your exotic car ownership, because isn't that kind of the point? You work really hard and like you have a Lamborghini, and it's not about just showing off or revving at a light, which is just idiotic, but it's about the idea that like it signifies something. And I feel like there is a group of people who are perhaps conservative enough that would enjoy this, that would think of it as a very, very exciting and conservative plus type car, you know? I think it's the same as basically this Rolex Platinum. Is to the average person, this looks like a stainless steel car. I mean, a stainless steel watch. And it's just a platinum watch. So this is still a $100,000 used watch. But to the average person, they think this is a Datejust that's just stainless steel. So they don't need to know. It doesn't point out that you're incredibly wealthy to the average person, but the connoisseur knows and respects you for it. And I think that's the best way to describe the AMG GT Black Series. It's a car for the connoisseur, and it's a car for the enthusiast who isn't necessarily looking for the most exciting exotic car, but rather just a really good and really capable exotic car. So anyways, hope you've enjoyed this. But the beauty of this, I think more than anything else, is that these cars came out in the 300s and they immediately went up 200K over MSRP. They softened a little bit to the 500K range, and they will eventually trend back up just like all other Black Series in the 6, 7, 800K range, which is pretty exciting for a car. And I think it's exciting to be able to invest or collect one of these as an investment, because I think they're just great. And I think in the long term, they'll do really well, even if in the short term they find that the amount of units on the market may make it harder for someone to just buy one and instantly flip it. The long term, I think you'll do really well. So anyways, again, if you want to learn how to get in and out of exotics, create a collection, or ultimately learn how to make financially responsible decisions around purchasing your exotics so you don't lose any money, all you have to do is simply click the link before I kill us here and trying to make a light. Click the link real quick and learn how to hack a car. Because remember, the times where we might be entering a recession soon, and you want to be learning how to establish your finances in a manner that still allows you to play with exotics, but positions you not to lose, of course, any money, especially going into the incoming 2 to 3 year downturn we might be facing very shortly. And even if we don't face it, nonetheless, who wouldn't want to be financially responsible with their money? So click the link and learn what car hacking is, learn how to apply it to any exotic or luxury car out there, and I will catch you in the next video for Exotic Car Hacks.